Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for arc number 2 for Andor Season 2. As you can see by the baked sushi, this is yet another 420 review. Don't know if this will happen every time. This time I'm actually recording on Monday instead of Tuesday. I just happen to be high right now. So, wanted to go through this arc. Also, it is Revenge of the 5th. I will be, putting this up late, but still, it'll be Revenge of the 5th. So happy Revenge of the 5th. I saw a good meme today where it was just like a bunch all the way up to 10, and they had it's treason 10 as like going to May 10th. So I thought that was funny. But that's somewhere out there. Find it. I highly recommend that if you're a new nerd, which you're watching this, so you definitely are. So Andor, arc number 2, BBY 3, which started the episode, started the issues. Not really an issue, just wanted to, this is something I've definitely been waiting to talk about. Does it bother anyone else that it's BBY3 and not 3BBY? I didn't realize that in the first episode where it showed the year. I didn't even think of it, but it's been a thing amongst, a bunch of us nerds where we always say that, honestly, it's something that we do, I don't know about the entire planet, but like, at least in the States, it's like, 2025 AD, or it's BC if it's before Christ. So I'm like, we always have kind of had that pattern. Even in most things that you see with Star Wars, whenever we talk about it, it's like, it's for BBY. This is a minute thing for anyone that may have decided to check out this random review, even though you might not know anything about Star Wars. BBY specifically is the battle before Yavin. So that's why it's like 4 BBY or whatever. It's 4 years. Obviously, you just don't have to say years, but it's 4, just like saying 2025, 4 BBY. And BBY is battle before Yavin. So it's weird that they put BBY and then the number, because like in order it's kind of like saying the actual thing. You skip over a couple things because it's simplified, but it's saying like 3 years before the Battle of Yavin. It's a full sentence if you say the whole thing out. So it's just kind of weird that it's BBY3. Something I noticed, giant nerd thing. So other than that, no nitpicks, just craziness. And I'm gonna jump right to the end because I mentioned last week people are gonna die. It's like, okay, like Luthen wasn't there, we don't know where Bix was at. All sorts of things. I wasn't thinking, who's gonna be murdered? Cinta. They didn't need to do that. There was no reason for that. They didn't have, I'm thinking of characters like, this character is literally in Rogue One. We know they're living. This character is not in Rogue One. Seems like they would die considering their role in things going on. This character is related to this character. It's kind of weird, Bix is with Andor, where she's not in the movie. Mon Mothma's in there. She left her family. Luthen is, posted on Coruscant, but still a little weird that we don't see him, right? That's kind of odd. I wasn't thinking of Vel and Cinta doing side missions. I'm like, they don't have to be in the movie. They could be fine. They could have just lived forever and it would have been like, yeah, whatever, it's cool. And they still killed her for no reason. I was like, dang, they're just killing people just to be like, it's sad out here. You didn't even think about them, did you? Of course we didn't. They broke up as a couple in like the second episode or something like that, and then that's it. That's all we've had. And it's just like, there was no reason for her to die. And now I'm freaking out because they got I can't even remember Luthen's assistant. It's like something with an F. It sounds almost exactly like Leia, but it's got like another letter somewhere in there. And I'm like, well, they can't kill her now because I'm starting to fall in love. And then I'm like, now people, like, how am I supposed to process that? So it's an interesting position that we're in where they're killing off characters. And I'm like, they literally did not need to be in the movie. It's okay. It's okay that they were doing another mission. It's okay if they just quit. But they had to kill her. And now I'm like, is Mon Mothma's cousin just gonna get murdered? Is that what makes her leave officially? Does she die because they find something out? Because that's what's in my head now. Now I'm like, well, she's not in the movie. They killed her girlfriend off right when everything was gonna work out. Of course, it was like watching it. It was like, okay, like they're so. It's crazy to say this. They were so far down on the totem pole. I wasn't seeing the obvious signs where it's like, oh man, I almost died. And of course we don't get the full story, but something crazy happened where she was supposed to kill that guy, Mon Mothma's old friend. And I don't know if she had to like blow a ship up or something insane, because she was out for like, months at a time. She was injured. So I'm like, that's interesting. And I feel like that's something they will, end up telling us later. But I was like, she must have had to blow something up that was just like a crazy way to kill this guy off that wasn't as simple as it was meant to be. So I'm curious to get that story, because I'm sure we will. But they were so far down on the totem pole. I was like, oh, their relationship is, they're coming back together. She tells Val, like, when I was injured and stuff, I was constantly thinking about you. And it's like, oh, there's hope and happiness. And I'm like, oh, okay, I already thought like, all right, this revolution is not exactly working. I thought that was bad enough. And then it goes down. Dude has a blaster, of course the kid does. The other guy comes along, and they're both just like two idiots just bashing against each other in that moment. Because I'm like, they were both at that meeting, and the older guy that comes in is like, he was clearly very against the Empire. I understand not needing to, doing your best to be like, no extra people know that we're doing this. But of all the people, maybe the guy who made the biggest noise about how much he's mad that like their leader is doing nothing is okay. Just be like, you're not supposed to see this, dude. But hey, we're trying to see what happens. I understand, keep people out of the mission. But also the kid wasn't supposed to have a blaster. So it was just a whole lot of madness. And then he's mad at the kid. And maybe it's just a me thing. I'm from Detroit. You pull a blaster on me, I'm not that confident. Old guy called it, but still, that's just a me thing. I'm like, I'm a statue at that point. I'm like, what do you want? Like that's all you got to do. So confident older man, and of course he called it. He was like, "Is that better not be a toy?" And fake French people, like he was very riled up. They're in a revolution. So, and I love the way they did that. There's some good behind the scenes stuff. I highly recommend looking into it, where they actually talk about like how they made the language and stuff. Where it's like clearly it was French, but then they added onto it to make it like something different. I was like, I like that. It's very fascinating. I was like, clearly it's meant to be French. Also, the leaders, the Merovingian from The Matrix Reloaded, really wanted to point that out because I was like, love that guy. Like he has some great angry speeches in The Matrix. So that was the Merovingian. So I thought that was super cool. But I like everything that they did. Just that end moment, I was like, that sucks. And of course it was that super quick death where it's like, it's not fanfare. It's none of that. It was the harshest death for a character that did not need to die, like at all. Like it just makes it the most unnecessary death, because it was like they could have easily just not been there. That's okay. Somebody could just be gone. We'll see what happens with Andor and Bix's buddy now that he's with Saw Gerrera. Is like he could also be somewhere else. I don't think it was on Jeddah. He could be somewhere else. He could be off doing the mission, or he could die in a horrible explosion. That's what they're putting in my head now. Now that they killed someone that was just like could have easily lived, would have been okay, wouldn't have even mattered. Not a part of the mission. They're already barely a part of this show. That's how you do it. You show characters a certain amount of time, you're not even thinking about them. They can be somewhere else. We barely even see them in this. It's okay. And now their friend is off with Saw Gerrera. He's crazy. There's more on that, of course, if you watch the animated stuff. But he's nuts, and he's inhaling these poisonous fumes, which eventually lead to him being how he was in Rogue One. There was no accident. He was just getting high on whatever. It's just absolute insanity. He's just crazy. That's just how it is. So that's war. That's what it does to people. But now he's off doing that, doing 8-cylinder bombs and crap like that. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not like in my head. It's just the worst of concepts where I'm like, they're killing people all over, like high on the totem pole, low on the totem pole. Everyone could just die. There's 5 more people left on the side of the heroes that could die. Like only two people on the side of the heroes out of 7 characters. 2 of them are in Rogue One. 3, I guess, if you count Saw Gerrera. I forgot about him. But 3, Mon Mothma, Andor, and Saw. And I think Mon Mothma barely shows up. But they got a lot of people to kill. If that's what they're gonna do, we don't know. But wouldn't your girlfriend be your partner in Rogue One instead of a robot, a big old droid? I don't know. It's gonna be unfortunate. It's just gonna get worse. And I'm really worried with 5 characters. What if they just pull something extra crazy and it's like, no, we gonna like everybody? I don't think they will. But Luthen not being in Rogue One is like, I know they're posted on Coruscant. That's it. They could do it, and I would totally accept it. Like, okay, they're on Coruscant. We don't see Mon Mothma, but like a tiny bit in the movie too. So she popped up. That's when she showed up. That's kind of how she shows up anyway. Like they have big meetings, and she's like, Mon Mothma, I look good. I'm in a dress or something. And then it's like, where has she been this whole time? So she was somewhere. She was on Coruscant. That's it. Luthen could live. The other woman who's not Leia, even though her name like rhymes with Leia, and they did the hair. I think that was the whole point. I could be wrong about that. Conspiracy theories. But I was like, it's gotta be on purpose, right? Her name's basically Leia, and then her hair is like, they're not buns, obviously, but it's like, had to be on purpose. Had to be. So we'll see what happens. I hope everyone lives, but they won't. They just won't. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from there. But to start with episode 4, of course, Bix is having these nightmares, and I'll kind of shoot through her story like as a whole, because I do like the way that it ended. It was very surprising because it was like, boom, it was actually soft, but they do reference it, even though they constantly said the guy's name. I didn't realize that that was who the Imperial guy was referencing. He was like Dr. Gorbeck or whatever. I'm like, some doctor dude, huh? I was like, oh, it's like the only doctor that they've discussed the entire time, because I know Andor said his name a few times, and I'm like, oh, that's just on me. I didn't realize that until I watched a review where they're like, oh no, that's who they were talking about, and I was like, they did say his name like 5 times before the Imperial guy said it, so that was on me for not realizing that that was what they were referencing. Like, hey, he's coming to Coruscant. We're sharing this new doctor with his torture techniques. I totally missed that. I thought they just found him and that was it. And I was still kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Like they got the intel, they found the dude, and Biggs went to handle it. But her going through her nightmares and then, taking drugs to try to, forget it all. And she's just constantly looking out the window and stuff like that. And being stuck there, wanting something more exciting. But of course, she's also kind of drowning in that memory. So she can't go out and kind of refresh herself. Like she has to find a way to kind of pass this major gap where this dude tortured her and like effed her brain up. It's been 2 years now. So I like the way they handled that. And it was kind of a classic thing, but I am happy that they solved it and they didn't carry it on into, the next 2 arcs, which they probably could. Well, people be on drugs for a long time. When that sort of thing happens, it can last for a long time. So they could have, but I'm glad that they went through kind of the whole process of it where she was still having the nightmares in the first arc. They're almost becoming worse, and it's starting to blend missions together, like the kid that died because he actually saw her face. And so they have that argument of like, kind of the what's right or what's wrong sort of thing, except they're not really saying like, this is right or this is wrong. It's just kind of like the acceptance of what it is, but still kind of hating what it is. And I was like, I like this idea. Like they're not really against each other, but it's antagonistic just because it's like, dang, he saw my face and you had to kill the guy. And it's just like, it still sucks that happens. Like it's mess ups can get innocent people killed, even if, it's an Imperial soldier, but it's just like, it's still a life. The simplest way to put it, it's still a life. When you're right up close, it's a little bit different. But Andor would be like, I'd be dropping people. I had to do it. He had a whole moment in this, like, you don't know who I am. I could be anybody. He was like, I could be like, he had a whole speech and it was good. And it was an interesting moment. It was like these 2 episodes, I think, were the first time we really got to see the darker side, is like a better way to put it, but like it really showed like these are his skills. Like they do the whole lead up where he meets the people and then it's like, all right, this is the person that you're going to be, and it's the fashion designer, and he just listens to it the whole way through. This is where you grew up, this is what floor you was on, this is why you went there, this, you always wanted to come here as a fashion designer, but it's like a dream come true and you're going to do this, that, and the other. And it was like, it's just your wits and your skill. And I was like, I like that. I want to see this version of Andor. And it being like 2 years in, it's like, this is why he's always picked for stuff. This is why the show is Andor. He can go in and he's a professional at this point. He can say whatever when he talks to the guy, the bellhop, and he's like, oh, I'm just a tourist. I'm just curious about everything. And he apologizes to the guy, but he still, when he goes to the window, is like, oh, I'm just so curious. And the way that he looked was so funny to me, because it was the perfect thing where he's just like, he's kind of half leaning, but he's kind of looking like, yeah, there we go, got him. And it was like, that was just his professionalism. He just leaves the door open a little bit, but he still kind of had to be like, do I need to pivot? If he doesn't, like how do I get this little piece of information? That information, of course, is absolutely tragic. Grand Moff Tarkin doing something else horrible, of course. But it was a great story. I like the way it was done, and it's like, the weird idea of having the monument and stuff, and then of course that monument is now having a armory built over it, just casting a shadow, where it's like, we already squished him anyway, just put a shadow over, who cares? And that's the Empire. It just very fascinating, to say the least, just how they treat different cities. Once again, watch the animated stuff. Realize my feet is like falling down, like way tinier. I'm like, hold on. Watch the animated stuff. It's really, really good. They do this a lot, especially if you watch Rebels. That's like almost the whole point, is like, man, these small towns are just so tortured. That's like the entire reference show, except when they focus on like the crazy Jedi stuff. So watch Rebels, watch Clone Wars. Like, I'm telling you, there's stuff in there that's on par with Andor, and that is obviously a personal opinion, but it's also an accurate one. Clone Wars, just saying. But the way they handle Andor in this, his attitude, the professionalism, loved all of that. And it was very cool. He didn't like what they were doing. They weren't ready for it, which of course was proven at the end. They also couldn't even follow orders officially. But I like the fact that he did that. And then it's like, oh, he disappointed Luthen. Luthen does his thing where he goes and talks to Bix while she's on drugs. And it's like, oh, I was gonna offer you a mission. And it's so hard to tell. I'm like, I don't think he was really gonna do it, but he did kind of have to see. Like, he said that that's what he was doing, but I'm like, I don't know. It's hard to tell if he already, trusted Andor in that moment where he's like, you don't know she's going to be okay. Like, was that really why? Because he could have radioed her or something, I'm sure. But he went to the house. So it was like, part of him kind of cares just a little bit, like just enough. So I thought it was a good scene. And it's like, okay, he knows something's wrong. He can't do it. But also Andor is like, he knew to do that when I left. He knew we'd be having this conversation. We probably didn't want him to come to the store at the very end of the night, not even with the hood up. He was just like, why did you talk to her? Why'd you go behind my back like that? So I did love that sequence, but he instantly had that story ready where it's like, you're dropping off a coin, a Dwarvian coin or something like that. I was like, is this a part of him knowing they had the conversation? Or is this like his automatic backup plan as soon as somebody comes? Like, it's so impossible to tell. Did he just make that up? Did he have that ready because that's the Andor plan? Or is that like the everybody plan? But how many people are really showing up like that? So many contingencies. It's insane. But I loved watching it. I love the way they handled that. And of course, like I said, with Bix in general, having, the very deep down depression of everything that happened, and then being like, oh, I'm sure Luthen was like, I got some news. And then that just shot right up. And it was a simple scene. And also a little hard to tell. I was like, is this really happening? Is it another dream? But I'm like, he's by himself. He has a random cake. I'm like, this is the dude. Like, it felt super weird from all the constant like flashes and stuff where I'm like, I think this is actually him. It was so crazy. Especially with her memories being mixed together. I thought they were showing that there was like a new memory that happened because of a recent mission, and it happened like in between the year span. I thought they were like introducing, so they did run into the guy again, but she didn't get to kill him. She just mixed those two things together, and then it was like, oh, okay, like this is legit happening. Because I was confused by that, and then I realized that was her mixing the dream. I was like, they ran into him again. It was what I first thought when like it was all brand new stuff from him. So I'm like, this actually happened. This was like a new thing that happened. And then it was just her mixing everything together. But I thought that was interesting. And then we get to the end, and it's the guy. Had his little birthday cake. I think I don't know. I guess it's torture. We'll just say torture, and then like blown to smithereens. Obviously, can't leave much evidence. Anyone could have found him at some point. But just in case, let's just drop the whole floor on him. So that was a heck of a way to end it, for sure. Like, it was very simple. He turns the light on. She's right there. He said he remembered her, but it wasn't like in her dreams where it's like, oh, it's you, like this special person. Like, man, how have you been? Like, as if he would actually torture her. He was just kind of like, I know you. How do I know you? And that was as far as it went. It was like he recognizes what he's done, but she wasn't that special. It was just like, I kind of got flashes of the people I torture, but it's like a name. Come on. So that was interesting. It was just like, this is weird. Why is this so weird? That was his thing. He was just confused. And then I'm sure he felt the torture as soon as that junk went on. And I'm sure he felt something when the building blew up. So I'm sure he's doing what he's doing wherever he's at right now. But it was a great way to end it and be like, all right, the team's back together. And somehow K2SO comes in, and Bix is nowhere to be seen in Rogue One. Once again, we'll see what happens with that. But I like that story. Andor's thing was really cool. Him not really trusting the people, being like, you guys are not ready at all for this. He takes off. Luthen is disappointed in him, but which I find super odd. It's really just Luthen being an a-hole, because it was like, you just don't care. Like, we're not droids. And there's two, like I said, two couples that are like, he likes us better when we're healthy, but also when we're apart and healthy. Like, that's what he wants for all of his people. Like, I hate these attachments everybody keeps getting. And he's kind of confronted with that a little. And that's why I kind of like the big sequence, because it's still hard to tell. Like, it's not like he cares 100%, but part of me wonders, how much does he care? He gives up everything, all that good stuff, which they do have a moment of that, like, I gave you everything. I'm sure he had some thoughts on that when Andor said that to his face like that. But I thought it was cool. Like I said, them going through the planet, all the madness that happens there, and killing off a character, that's insane. The serial side of things, very cool. It was like, oh, they're not together, but then it turns out he's her little spy, but he doesn't actually know anything really. He thinks it's for just to stop the Gorman front, but he of course has no idea it's about the Death Star. And they're super weird. Like the scene when he comes back home for the vacation and they like slowly kiss each other, I was like, look at these emotionally awkward, like just morons. Like, it's so cute, and I hope they both burn in hell. But it's just like, it's so awkwardly cute. But I love that sequence. They have an hour, and then she's just like, turn the lights off. Like, that's the thing. So it's like, okay, it's fascinating. We'll see where this goes. It's impossible to tell if he will end up turning good or not. It's of course that whole thing, because it's like, he seems really happy. He seems very solidified. Like, I'm with my lady. This is the best day of my life, because the dude told him, like, good work. And I'm just like, okay, he's obviously very endeared to the Empire. He's doing the super spy thing and all that stuff. I think he actually did a good job with it. Like, he didn't seem nervous. He was playing his role right. And it's like, that alone, I think shows like how good of a character he really is. Like, he's destroyed by his mother, if we're being completely honest. And he's with Deidre. So it's like, it's better, but it's still like, you know, just the no emotion, just like the awkward kiss. And then like, all right, well, we got an hour, we can bang it, turn off the lights. And it's just like this shut down thing. And of course he's like, I can't believe you have me followed. And she's like, shut off the lights. Like, we're not talking about this. You don't need to know. And it's just weird. It's a weird dynamic, but he's playing his role really well. He is actually doing cool stuff. He freaked out when Tinta was shot. And then when it's like raining and they're leaving and stuff, he freaks out, but then he stops and he just starts smiling. And I'm like, okay, he's still all Empire right now. 100%. He's just playing his role. But does it change is the really hard part. Because Deidre she's doing Death Star stuff. She's dead and gone. She is evil. But Cyril, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell if they'll just stay evil. And it's just there because it just seems like he could do something special and just have a moment if he wants to. Like, it's so hard to tell, like, is he just full Empire or does he want to have like the cool heroic moment? I think in the end, he just wants a moment. So that's why it's hard for me to be like, is he going to be straight Empire? I could easily see it. Would he just try to do something good? Because it's like, oh, I could instantly be like a hero to all of these people. He might, just for the attention of it all. Like, deep down, it's there. So it's hard to tell if that'll cause him to like just make a shift solely because in that moment, he could do something that would be like, you know, a part of the grand design in people's minds or something crazy. So it's hard to tell if it would just be for attention or if he'd actually do it because he turned good or if he'll do it at all. I would love to know your thoughts. I know that's kind of been going around where people have been curious and, you know, debating like, I think he's going to turn. He'll at least have an opportunity, even if he doesn't. I'm not sure, but we'd love to know your thoughts on that because there's certainly ways it could go. And I feel like each way makes sense for him just because of everything we've seen. He could do both and it 100% makes sense. And just in the stories I've made up in my head, like everything we've seen, I can see him be good just for the attention. I can see him just following the Empire because it's working. They're literally setting them up to be like, you know, get fake victories and stuff, which still got fumbled. But it's just interesting to see where it's headed. It's like, okay, I'm very excited for sure. Like what ends up happening, especially a year gap. We'll know what happens. I'm loving this year gap thing, the way it's being handled. Also, we got 2 more weeks and I do have to mention this. Did they forget about his sister, Andor's sister? I have to reference that right now before I forget. We got 2 weeks. It could magically pop up. They're like it's 3 hours, 6 hours, both weeks. It could happen in there and be like one episode that somehow ties into another mission he's doing or something. And it could actually happen like in an instant. You got 3 hours to tell the story. They could easily do it and it worked. But did they remember? Is the thing that's in my head more than anything else. Do they remember that plot line? Because it has literally not once been referenced. Once again, there are 6 effing hours basically left of this show. They can easily reference that stuff in an instant and it's like, boom, here you go. Like, it can happen. So it's not that crazy that they're just saving it for, what if the episode he finds his sister is where Biggs dies? Now that's emotion. Just saying, throwing that out there, double whammy. They reference the sister, maybe she's dead, and then Biggs dies somehow. Like, just absolute tragedy. Everything in my head is like the worst it could be right now because I'm like, I don't know who they're gonna kill. But I hope they remember his sister. That was like literally the opening sequence of the series was him going to that club to be like looking for his sister. It was the first mention of anything in this show of this story is like, oh, he has a sister and she's lost in space. Yeah, we have not heard a hi nor hair of this woman. I hope they didn't forget. But either way, I'm sure it'll be fantastic. That'll just be a really weird thing if that's never mentioned. They'll make a comic and be like, oopsie, psych, we did a comic. They wouldn't admit that they made that mistake. Or, maybe the writers might. But they'll make it a comic and it'll be on YouTube one day. But we'll see what happens with that. All in all, these 3 episodes are great. I like what they did with Cyril. The back and forth, his spy work. We'll see what happens with that. Deidre's the same. Luthen's spy has a really cool moment, or just at least a lot of moments. I don't know if he was ever really cool, but he's doing some work. He's like standing up for stuff and mentioning things, and it's like, man, thank you for doing that. And then like that gets him a little bit of clout. Like he puts the one guy on the other mission that got like overly excited, like, it's an honor, sir. And he instantly was like, you're on lead for this. And then that gives him, the case of like, all right, I'm starting to pull in some extra information, but I'll just throw it on him because he's effing up. I've done good, recently, like I kind of saved their butt from being chewed out. So they both kind of owe me a little bit. Plus, what was said is, talked about like, hey, we're trying to process this information, something that happens on both sides, which I love. The scene with Luthen when they're having that argument, like there's too much going on. I was like, oh, everyone has too much information. There's too many people to pretend are automatically the rebels and stuff and the bad guys. And then on the hero side is like, there's just too many assholes. Like, who do we keep check on? So I thought that was cool. I was like, okay, everyone's just like flooded with information and the way they're doing things. So I like the way that was handled. But we'll see what happens going forward with that whole plot line as far as Luthen is concerned. They made a great scapegoat moment, and it was really cool. Yeah, I also did actually like the piece that they were doing. Like I love that design of it just being like this spiral, and then it's all braille based. Also, Krennic in his arguments with Mon Mothma, fantastic, and it gave them a lot of extra time, fortunately. But I was like, this is cool. Krennic showing up as well was like scary, but it was a great moment there, and it led to like one of my favorite jokes by the end of the episode. But they're going through, and I wish I could remember her name, but not Leia, but she has to literally bleed to undo this effing microphone that they got in there. And I thought that was so interesting. I'm like, could they have just like rotated places and she just been like, hey, like just twist this thing out? But at the same time, that's her job. What would you do if I wasn't here? Whatever I had to do. And it shows an interesting thing. Like them having that argument was like, okay. She like obviously she was always the one that had like a bit of attitude, who was like kept things kind of in line for sure. But them having a straight up argument was like she convinced him to do that. And it's like, okay, they do things that are her plan sometimes, but they have their parts to play. And it's like if Luthen got to be the bad guy giving all the orders, that's just what happens. But she gathers the intel, and sometimes they got to go out and do some interesting stuff. So it was interesting. It's like, okay, some ideas are hers. They are a unit where it's not Luthen is not at the top by himself. Like she does have decision making, and he's the one, that's the face, but it's like they're both the brains of the operation. And sometimes she might be more of the brains if he's just flipping out and also having arguments. Like, great, we got like one thing on this dude. But she talked about it. It's like, you agreed to it. So they both play their roles. And I thought that was pretty fun to actually see, because it seems like them having that moment, hopefully it's not the last. It makes me curious, like what happens if Luthen is the one that disappears? Doesn't have to be dead, but what if she does have to like take over for like a set of 3 episodes, or even an episode and a half? Like what happens during those moments when it's all on her and they don't get to split it? Or vice versa, what if something happens to her, which I feel like it would be more on Luthen because she stays on Coruscant, so that's why I use Luthen as the one who vanishes. I don't know why she would leave. It's super rare, but I don't know why she would just randomly be somewhere else. But if Luthen disappeared or she disappeared, I'd love to see that interaction. Obviously in 6 hours, they can totally do it. I don't know if they care to do that or if anything like that will ever happen, but it would be interesting to see. And I'm sure in some form, we're going to see more of her having to make some sort of choice, kind of like the Cyril thing. I think they're going to play that up a little bit, at least in some other form, over really these next 2 years, which will be interesting. But I love what they did with that. I thought that was cool. And of course them getting out and the joke like, oh, we should have killed Krennic while we were up there. Great laugh. I thought that was really funny. And it was just like, okay, like I hated that plan. I did agree to that plan. This was also a horrible plan. We could never get this out of the party. And she said, mock all you want from the smiling thing or complain all you want, but it worked. That was her plan. Like, we need to be prepared. He was the one that said, we can't get it out of the party. And they did it. And it works. He's like, all right, I got a good partner. Let me make a funny joke. We should have killed Krennic. They should have. Wouldn't have worked out very well, but I guess technically it's okay. In a sense, that joke came true. That like them as a unit in this show is like, technically they were definitely a part of Krennic dying. In the end, I'm sure that actually happened. So great joke. I thought it was really funny. It's like, all right, they're cool. Like them as a unit, they're kind of back together. And then by the end, we have Andor and Bix. Bix does her thing. And I love that she just killed another dude. Where it's like, she walked through that whole place. Not a single person was there but him. Kills a dude. And as she's walking out, there's just a dude coming out like, you're not supposed to be here. And she's like, oh yeah, boom. And he's dead. And then they, of course, blow up the building. So super funny way to end it as well, where it was just like, man, that guy, you can't say innocent, but it is kind of funny. Just like, there is no one else ever. And then this dude just had to die. Just wrong place, wrong time for him. And then it's just like, yeah, I don't care. Boom. Imperial, dead, blew up the place. And it looked like they were still on Coruscant, which made it even crazier. I would assume they were, because that's where the ISB is. But they just blew it up. They walked away, and it's like, we're going to escape. We're done. So they're together, like all the unit, well, 2 out of 3 of the units, it's not bad, but 2 out of 3 of the units, they're together. And I'm excited for this next arc for sure. Like I'm very excited for these next 6 episodes. I hope they don't forget the sister. Very curious where things are going to go with Mon Mothma. I hope Vel does not die, and that's what leads Mon Mothma to go. I have no idea what to expect with Saw Gerrera, but it would be interesting. Didn't expect Krennic to show up, so now with the way this episode ended, granted, year time skip, if it was day to day, it would be different. But I'm like, are we going to see more Saw Gerrera? That would actually be kind of cool. Might not happen though. It could have just been that moment. But once again, we saw Krennic more than once. Just like we got them, they might use both of them. They might be all over the place. Who knows? But very excited for this next arc. We'll see what ends up happening. Really excited for K2SO as well. I want to see if he starts off as funny as he is by the time they hit Rogue One, or how does that really play out for them? Like we got to see the introduction. That would be crazy, right? Not to see it, but they might skip over it. Who knows? But we'd love to know your thoughts on this arc, and of course where we're headed for the next 2. What do you guys want to see? What do you not want to see? Cameos, of course. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't mind it at all, personally. But we'll see what ends up happening. We got enough as of now, but would Vader really show up? Possible. Would the Emperor show up? That would be awesome. That'd be sick. If the Emperor was like the cameo of the show, like not the heroes, not other villains, even we've literally had Vader in a show, but here's Palpatine, new Palpatine. That would be exciting. I don't, he'll bust out the unlimited power or anything, which would be cool. I mean, oh my God, that would be one of the greatest moments of my life. If they were just like, surprise, it's Palpatine. It's like, oh, that's amazing, Palpatine. And then also he busts out the light. They would never do that, but it would be a dream come true. I love that Force lightning, and nobody does it except for him and Rey. And I don't think we're seeing her do that anymore. So I need my Force lightning. Just saying. But we'd love to know your thoughts on this arc. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Like I said, all the things Andor, hopes, dreams, things that you don't want to see, but we're unfortunately going to have to see. Think about that. But put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.
You hungry? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Like I'm Shaggy. Man, I'm hungry. Man, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Yeah, man. You hungry?